Hello, everybody, and welcome. Coverin here, and I would like to welcome you all to our special episode diving into Fabula Nova Crystallis and the 13 trilogy. So we have some familiar faces here and some new faces. I'd like to introduce, starting with Ceci. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Of course, I had to start.
Of course,
Hi,
naturally.
I'm Cecilia, or Ceci, or Cess. I'm a fan of the trilogy, obviously. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. I played it when it was released. The first game, I was 16, I think. It was my first Final Fantasy game, and it really, really stuck. And yeah, I never really let go.
So I should add that these are all members of the 13 lore diving community that Meowth has wrangled together.
Of course, blame it on me.
Rhapsodic has it. Miss Caius did nothing wrong herself.
Oh shit! Yes, that would be. That would be
already
mean.
tell we're gonna get along.
It was one essay. It was one essay.
It was also 35 pages.
Maybe, yeah, I think it was kind of like that. You actually made it into a fanfic, I think.
No, it was a retelling. It was an artistic retelling.
And
as Anna says is a professional pianist. So, and she at my I was going to say behest, but likely influence. She's made some great arrangements of some of Final Fantasy 14 tracks. So there's that. Go check her channel.
Yeah, I do music. That's what I do.
Love it.
We're definitely.
I write things and I do music.
All right, Selenity, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I played the trilogy back when it first came out. Huge fan of it, absolutely loved it. Then realised that the majority of the fandom hated my favourite characters, didn't like the story, that sort of thing. So I never really touched fandom until probably about a year and a half ago, when it started showing up in Dissidia Opera Omnia, and I happened to stumble across some of the groups that Meowth and the others were a part of, and joined in and realised that, oh, there are people who actually enjoyed the game the same way that I did.
Amazing.
So we got talking, and that was it. I was doomed to fall into the lore diving.
Yeah, that's kind of what happened to me. Oh, all right. SF doll?
Yeah, I'm kind of a old school gamer. I started back in the 90s with Final Fantasy VII, and I've, gone and played most everything in the main entries. And 13 was always, one of those that I was drawn to because I liked all the characters in it. And I've actually been following Meowth and Cess over on Tumblr for years, but we didn't really start talking until, recently when we moved over to Discord.
I'm glad to have all of you here, so thank you. So I guess I should talk about my history with 13. Some of you probably know. I played 13 when it came out for 2 hours, maybe 3. I put it down and I said, I hate this game. It's terrible. And I was one of the ones who was like, oh yeah, 13's terrible. Despite the fact that they made 3 games, so they must have made money somewhere. But it took me a long time to get back to it, and when I played it again, it was a completely different experience from what I remember. I remember actively not liking the game, and then, I started it, and I felt so much more invested in it. Thank you for the follow, Carby. I felt so much more invested in the world, the characters, and what was going on. And I don't know if it was, I'm older now, or if it was the kind of storytelling that we were looking for when the game came out, as opposed to, you know, the kind of storytelling that we're looking for now. And I've recently talked to quite a few people who did the same thing, who played 13 when it came out, hated it, and then went back and tried it again and loved it. And I think a lot of it had to do with the era the game came out in. I mean, Meowth has always said that the game was ahead of its time. I tend to agree, but thinking about, yeah, I got suckered in by the himbo, exactly. I after talking to people, I realized that when the game came out, there was a lot of open world stuff. Everybody wanted open world games. You know, Skyrim had come out. Everyone wanted to be the next Skyrim, so everyone was making sandbox games. And then 13 comes out, and it's this mostly linear story. I say linear story because if anyone tries to tell me the game's a hallway, I can't count how many times I got lost and turned around in these supposedly one-way hallways. So I vehemently disagree with that. But a lot of people just were not looking for linear gameplay. And going back, now that we're all burned out on sandboxes, playing a linear story was just so refreshing. So, yeah, that's kind of my first hot take on the 13 trilogy.
And Neela, maybe you should.
Yes, I've got a little to say. I didn't play it right away when it came out. I was a broke person at the time, so I waited till it went on sale, and I picked it up for the Xbox 360, I think. God, it's been a little while. I don't remember exactly when this was. I didn't pay attention to what people said. I just like Final Fantasy games. But unfortunately, I played a little ways in, felt very lost, sort of confused, and was like, well, I'll come back to it. And then I never came back to it until Meowth did this lore dive. And then I was like, I should do that. And that's when I learned that I'd been playing it horribly wrong. And that as a person who enjoys reading, I should have gone and read the entries. And if I had done that, I'd have played the trilogy through. But I didn't. I just missed this one little thing, and it just took it from very enjoyable to didn't quite, just a misconnection there. So I feel very fortunate to have met all these people, and especially Meowth, who's helped me help make this thing accessible to me, where before it just felt inaccessible.
I absolutely agree, and I feel like it just was a completely different experience this time, and I kind of am envious that you waited to play it, because I also had it for Xbox 360, and it was kind of interesting trying to get the first game to stream from my living room, from my console. I actually had to put it in my Xbox One, and it took me more time than I'd like to admit to realize that Xbox One doesn't really use the physical discs for old games. It just kind of counts as a, hey, you own this game, now you can go download it and install it on the console. So that was an interesting experience trying to figure all that out. And I think this whole thing started when, you know, I started playing it again, and I was kind of giving my play-by-play in our Lorelines Discord, and Meowth was like, you need to stream this because this is hilarious. I got to the vestige. And,
It was.
And
I started like, Cobb, you need to stream that. The moment you went into the vestige and found out that the Garlean flag was inside of Anima.
yes,
So
the Falsi are Garleans. I had no idea. That was kind of the moment it hit me. I was like, oh, this is gonna be something special.
So we can go over impressions, Cobb, if you want, or we can go into lore. What do we all said?
I would like to start with a little bit of lore. I think Neil is absolutely right. If you don't read the data log in the game, you're going to be very lost. I am very, very glad that they did include the data log in the games, because I feel like if they had put that outside, yeah, my streams are something special. Not always in a good way. But I think that having the data log in the game really does add a lot to it. Even if it's not included in the story proper, it does give you a lot of background information that helps enhance the story, and it's all right there together. So it's not like you have to open up a book or look something up online. It's right there in the game. And yeah, I kind of want to go into starting with, since the Falsi are kind of what kicked everything off, going into what they are, where they came from, all that stuff.
Well, that's a big point, because what really kicked off is different what we perceive in OG13 as for when the sequel comes and we really learn what kicked off the entire thing. So if you want me to stick to OG, or do we go over this and including the entire trilogy?
Well, I mean, the top says Fabula Nova Crystallis, so we can go over the whole trilogy. We don't need to stick to the first game.
Okay, so basically, Fabula Nova Crystallis, the mythos are based on the pantheon, so to speak. And that's basically what kicks the entire thing. There's the goddess of chaos. Her name is Muin, and she was she's described as the only goddess in the mythology that actually understood, between quotes, human emotion, because, well, she's the goddess of chaos, and humans have the spirit, which is a part of chaos. It's a kind of a mess, but let's leave it at she's the only one that truly got to understand emotions. So she has a kid by the name of Bunibelse, who has power over the physical stuff, the physical realm, so to speak, and he's kind of charged with its protection. And because Muin is the goddess of chaos, and that involves destruction, creation, this whole cycle, Bunibelse misunderstands this, believing that her mother has imposed a curse of destruction in all of creation. So, believing that it's kind of his duty to protect creation, since it's what he's kind of told to do. Then he fights his mother Muin, he wins, and Muin is defeated and goes into the unseen realm, which is the spirit realm. So, he does that, and he becomes like overlord of the physical realm. But he's scared because he's like, oh fuck! So I happened to kill my mother, and she is kind of in his mind, which is not very bright, by the way. Runs in the family.
Not very bright.
Wow. Worst kind of light ever.
So he's kind of scared, and he's like, maybe. He believes so. So I actually killed my mother. She may have imposed a curse in me and my creation of total destruction. So what can I do? Oh, maybe I can go into the unseen realm and perma-kill her existence. Problem is, I'm the god of the physical realm, so I can't see the spiritual. So how do I find the gate to the spiritual realm? So that's when he creates his children. First was Pulse, the god of destruction, even though he's basically the god of strength, and he charges Pulse with the terraforming of the world and searching the gate of souls in the world per se, if there's some entry that can be found. Then second is Etro, and Woody also makes Etro and realizes in horror that subconsciously he's created her in the exact same image as his mother, whom he's terrified of. And because he oops, and he's like, no, I don't really trust this. I don't like this. So he decides, I'm not giving you any purpose nor power. Let's move on. And instead of Etro, who would have instead of Etro, he gives what would have been her purpose to the final kid, which is Lindsay, who is Lindsay the Sage, is tasked with the protection of the realm, and he's meant to, when Budweiser goes into crystal sleep, because he's like, I'm going to sleep until my kids find this stupid gate, and he tasks Lindsay with sounding the bells to awaken him once the gate has been found. So that's when Universal goes to sleep. He at this point he has no idea about humans. Humans have not been yet being created, so all he knows are Falsey and gods, basically Falsey. So Paul creates his Falsey, Lindsay creates his, and Etro is there like, I have no powers, I have no purpose in life. My father has no interest on me. I'm going to kill myself, and because I want his attention. Maybe if I turn myself apart, I will get his attention. So she does, and she dies, of course. So she goes to the unseen realm from her blood spilled. Lindsay takes them and creates molds humans. And the first one he creates is a young girl based on Etro's and by proxy Muin's appearance physically, and her name is Yule. So Yule is the first human ever made in the image of Etro, but also Muin, because family resembles. So Etro goes to the unseen realms. She finds Muin being about to be consumed by chaos, and before she melts into the chaos, Muin tells Etro to keep an eye between the rift of the physical realm and the unseen realm, because if the chaos seeps through, then it will mean the destruction of the world, and thus Etro becomes the goddess of death. And that didn't really go well. You had one job, and you utterly screwed it up, Etro.
So Sass, I'm seeing
We all have opinions.
Yeah, I saw you put in chat about 1% of this is explained in the game. Do you want to go into that?
Yeah, really. In the first game, we know about the Falsey, yes, but you can I did at least, go through the first game, and you know about Lindsay, you know about Pulse, you know there's a bigger god somewhere doing something, but
sleeping.
that's about it. They do elaborate in 13.2 and in Lightning Returns, but you can go through the first game and not understand shit. Okay, there are bad gods, and it's a Final Fantasy game. Of course, we're gonna kill God. That's and then we kill God's God and God's God. It's
We kill God, and then we find bigger, better gods to kill.
Some sort of godception thing going on.
Yeah, exactly.
We all just
Reverse
agree that
nesting dolls.
Etro was.
Etro was the queen of good decisions.
Let's know.
The goddess of great decisions.
Trademark it.
Exactly.
But
All the best decisions.
no, but I mean, it's kind of. I mean, this is a lore episode, so it's kind of. I was about to say, let's not go down the Etro rabbit hole, but then in a sense, I was like, maybe we should.
If you do, I'm gonna go on the Caius tirade.
Why not? We talked about Yule. Let's go into Caius. Who is Caius?
Oh,
And...
Says this one's yours.
Yep. So tell us about this character of Caius, who is introduced in 13.2, presumably out of nowhere, and he's outside Valhalla in the water, on vacation, presumably, and then he's just kind of in the rest of it until the very end.
Are we going to do this chronologically, or?
I will leave that up to you,
fuck it.
because after 13.2, chronologically just kind of goes out the window.
So there's this dude named Caius Ballard, who is the antagonist in 13.2, but really, he did nothing wrong.
He's also very cute, which is important for characters who've done it before.
And
True.
Liam O'Brien also voices him, so that's also, let's put it out there. But yeah, we talked about Yule. Yule is a girl, the first human, and she died because that's what humans do. And Etro was so oh my god, poor girl, I should send her back up again. So Etra does. And I don't... Meowth, is it accidental that she kind of gives her the eyes of Etro, or is that just another fuck up?
No, I think that one is deliberate because she wanted to. She was endeared to this girl that happened to resemble her, so she gives her the eyes of Etro. And even though humans reincarnate in the terms of the soul remains in the Sea of Chaos, but the spirit melts away. So kind of in the chaos, it's kind of wacky there, but the soul sort of goes into the Sea of Chaos, is purified, then goes back. Yule's soul doesn't do that, and that's why she appears the same in every single one of her reincarnations. But her spirit each time is different because different experiences, different memories, and different stuff. So yeah.
I want to interject. I'm disappointed.
This girl, yeah. Sorry.
I want to interject. I'm disappointed in all of you. I misspelled Crystallis on the stream header. No one said anything.
I mean, we're not really that picky, I guess.
That's fine.
But
Nah.
Anyway, continue.
Yeah, so this Yule girl, she has the eyes of Etro, which means she can see the future. There's just one catch. Every time she gets a vision, her lifespan shortens. So she usually gets to live about 15 years. And then she goes back down to Etro, and Etro sends her back up. Over and over and over and over and over and over again. Yeah, this is not good. Let's just start the baseline. This is not good, but this girl is protected by guardians because, people kind of want to use this. Wow, this girl can see the future. We can use this for profit because humans are humans. So she always has a guardian. And for a while, there were Falsees who made... Oh my god, we haven't gone into Lessees yet.
No,
we're doing this in the wrong order. But yeah, so Caius. He sacrificed. He was one of a Yule guardian, and he did something brave to protect her. And Etra was like, "Wow, he died protecting my Yule. That was so brave. I'm gonna give you immortality because her gifts are amazing." So he is now tasked with taking care of every Yule. And keep in mind, these Yules, they go on continuously and live for about 15 years. And then he watches them die. And then he gets to find a new Yule who's born somewhere. Adopts her when she's about 6 because that's about when she gets first vision. And takes care of her, teaches her how to read, and reads bedtime stories to her and everything, and watches her die when she's 15. And this cycle goes on and on and on. And if you do, I call it the Yule death math, because he does say at one point that he's witnessed hundreds of Yules die, and 15. So he's at least 1.5 millennia old. And he's watched a lot of Yules die. So when we enter 13.2, he's kind of done. He's kind of done with Etro. He's kind of done with his nonsense. And he wants everything to end. I mean, when you enter the game and he's all... You can tell from the start, okay, villain who wants to destroy the world, who wants to kill the goddess of death. This is bad. But when you reach the end of the game and you kind of... He's not entirely off, is he?
I mean,
He isn't wrong.
there's one thing to point out here that it's a generalization, but Yules happen to live a slightly longer before the ending of OG 13, which is which is when Etro breaks time by extending her mercy, freeing everyone from crystal stasis, sweeping Lightning into the Unseen Realm, guilt-tripping her into eternal servitude, and then, well, you know the whole thing.
Great job. Yeah, as AC Gears and Arms says in chat, Etro really gives out stuff that isn't wanted or reciprocated, and that people don't want. She's the worst person to have for Christmas. But on
Caius, 32 is just he really wants to die, and he wants to kill Etro. That's his thing. That's what he wants, and he kind of nails it, and then doesn't. But you know what I mean.
So I do want to go into the way Caius is written, though, because 13 is kind of unique in that it does this thing where it presents someone as something. So in Caius' instance, he's presented as the villain or the antagonist, and by the end you realize, no, he's not working against you, he's just working for something else, and you're just in the way.
He's an anti-villain.
No, he's an anti-hero, I would say.
Yeah, I would say.
Yeah, because he's
worst both ways.
Yeah, it could go either way.
If he had a game of his own, he would have been an anti-hero. But since he has the antagonist role, it's technically Read my essay.
Okay, fair enough.
But yeah, it's kind of like that. He's got motives. It's not compatible with what our protagonists want. But yeah, so he's the antagonist, yes, but we do kind of understand where he's coming from.
Right. Hashtag read my essay. Exactly. And where can people read the essay?
I'll send the link. I wish I was joking. I have an essay.
No, it's not a joke. The thing is that you refuse to acknowledge that, yeah, you did an essay of Caius Ballad. Deal with it. So, yeah. So, if you want to dunk more on Etro, Salinity, SF take the wheel.
Yes, because I dunked on Etro a lot during my run, so I would love to hear.
Everyone should!
I am of the opinion that Etro is the equivalent of, excuse my language, the Final Fantasy VII Hojo, where everything in the game is her fault. Just like in Final Fantasy VII, everything's Hojo's fault and not the commonly assumed Sephiroth. So,
but then
Sephiroth
again,
didn't do anything.
You have to backtrack. Who created Etro? Who?
Yeah, it does run in the family.
He not only created her, but then left her and was like, yeah, I got no use for her. So she's like, Daddy.
She is definitely the equivalent of a child raised by her siblings.
Oh
all the daddy issues.
Wow.
Coffee
I mean,
says, this is the worst chicken or the egg ever. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean, yeah. So
that's Yule. Yeah, Yule and Caius. They have their own story in 13.2, but it's kind of funny that we talked about them before we talked about the actual protagonist.
Well, see,
which
on that topic and how people are written not as what they are or presented not as what they are. So we do play as the protagonist in the story, but we play as Lightning. She is the protagonist, but she is not the main character of the 13 games. And brief history, I made, for those who didn't watch, I had a different weight room screen for every stream. And the one in the background now is the last one I made before I realized that Lightning was not the main character of the 13 games. And the story doesn't, like, it involves her, but it's not really focused directly on her. And that honor would actually fall to Hope. He
30 minutes.
Yeah, 30 minutes and before Hope comes up. But 13 just does this a lot, where it's like you're gonna get this perspective, but this perspective isn't actually what's happening. It's actually this other thing.
30 minutes, guys.
Is that a record?
No, it was it was a bet.
So much longer than I expected.
Welcome to this episode on 13. Let's talk about Hope S time.
Let's go, Meow.
No.
No. We're not there yet. We're not there yet.
If you're making me talk about Hope, there's literally no end to that. XIV, you take the wheel here to introduce, because you haven't talked. We take turns. I'm not here to steal the stage. Or maybe Cobb can introduce, or Neela. I don't care. Just don't make me go right into it.
Well, I think we really started with, the gods to set the stage for everything that our protagonists are up against here, because that's kind of, a big part of these games is the way that the characters are forced to fight fate. And, until you know what the odds against them are, their struggles don't make as much sense to get into.
I agree. I also would go as far as to say that 13 as a whole would be structured more like a Greek tragedy. 15 was as well, but I think that stems a lot from its birth as part of the 13 Fabula Nova Crystallis.
Yeah, the salt, eternal salt, but alas. But yeah. I mean, if we want to go down the Hope pit, I would actually think that it's better that we go over the rest of the characters first.
I agree.
So you can for a suggestion. We can, for example, go like I have I had a, because in Reddit I remember someone asking the character arcs, and there's this thing in the trilogy in which each game has like a main, or sorry, more like the surface narrative and the underlying narrative. And it's always about a couple of characters. It doesn't matter if they're a couple, or they're just a pair of characters that take the leading role, so to speak. And then for the entire trilogy, there's the same mechanism. There's an underlying narrative and the surface narrative and the underlying narrative, in which, as Cobb said, it's apparent, and then what's actually about, if it makes sense. So, and sometimes it switches towards the end of the game, so it becomes apparent to the player. Other times, not so much. So, like for example, let's talk about OG13 and how the initial say pair that the story is about Snow and Sarah. And then I think it's more or less middle of the game, more like the climax of the game. I like to consider it Palom, maybe Palom and the Palomesia if you want. And then it switches to Fang and Vanille. So maybe we can start discussing that. So
yeah, let's go into Snow and Sarah first, actually, because I remember when I started going through the game. And I wasn't sold on any of the characters. I was like, oh, I like lightning. And Saz was amazing, of course. But when... I don't remember when in the game it was, but when we see the cutscene of them just hanging out at their house, I was like... I almost mind blown. I had never seen anything like that in a Final Fantasy game before, where they were just people and just allowed to breathe like that in their home life. And 4 was the one that came closest, I think, to doing that. But this was like very contemporary and just relationship stuff, just talking about the relationship, and Lightning saying, "No, I don't like him. He's bad for you." Yeah, the himbo and the timbo, exactly. Sarah gives Lightning a knife for her birthday, and all this stuff. So, I really think that most of the events in the original 13 game are triggered by Snow and Sarah, and Snow's bad decision making. So, well, actually, no, it's Fang and Vanille. It's their fault.
Yeah, I'd say it's very much Fang and Vanilla.
Yeah.
And it's, I don't know if it's controversial, but I almost say it's Vanille's game. It's Vanille.
I mean, she's the narrator of the game for a reason. Like, the very original plan was for Vanille to be the protagonist, main character of OG13, and even though they kind of gave Lightning the poster role, there's a reason Vanille is a narrator, because that sort of is still there. So yeah,
she set everything in motion, and then she tried to run from it by lying and lying and lying and lying and lying, and it's
because that's what good people do, right?
It's fantastic to watch when it just unravels, because she has this persona of being so happy and carefree, and then you have her narration and you realize, like, this is not a healthy girl. she's not doing good. And but that's kind of the thing with all the characters, really. They are not what they seem at all.
Mm-hmm.
And Vanille just runs. That's what she does through the entire game until the end. That's why I think it's her game, really, because she triggers it all. She tries to run from everything, and then she stops and just, okay, I'm gonna do this now. I'm not gonna run. Yeah, and everyone else is kind of just brought along.
I mean, we've always said it's interesting that, like, they obviously Vanille and Fang were made l'Cie by Pulse, not Pulse, sorry, by Anima. So when the others get trapped into the vestige, they're actually changed into l'Cie by Pulse, the actual, god, rather than just one of the lesser gods. So although they trigger the plot, and it completely starts from Fang and Vanille showing up in the vestige and getting Sarah turned into l'Cie and everything escalating from there, the actual main characters who then drive the story end up becoming the four l'Cie who get changed, which is Lightning, Snow, Hope, and Saz. And obviously Vanille's there with them, but she's not technically part of that same group. So they end up getting caught up in it, and they end up taking pretty much the center stage because of Pulse's involvement.
True, because she also runs. So someone has to take the wheel.
She runs a lot too, and at risk of going into, my tirades on Vanille. How do I put this delicately? For me, she's written as the villain. Even though she's not directly doing anything, by not doing anything and letting everything go and get worse and worse and worse, and not doing anything to stop it when she could have. That's not good.
Yeah, she's
Cool.
not good.
I recall you saying in the last stream of Line Returns that if Vanille actually stopped and did nothing, it would be better for everyone else.
That's very true. If she had just done nothing, it would have been so much better. She did bad. She tried to hide doing bad by doing worse, and then just kind of went along with it. And then, I realized she's been a l'Cie for much longer than everyone else. She should have probably turned into a Cith long before the end of the game, but in the first game. But yeah, and then she's kind of trapped in Crystal for the entirety of the second game, which was amazing. So nice. And then they had to ruin it with an ending with her. But it's okay because she's just sad the entire time. So I was like, okay, good. So she finally escapes from Crystal Prison in Lightning Returns, and she almost had me fooled because she's like, oh, I was a piece of shit, and I'm trying to make up for it. And I was like, oh, I can't hate Vanille anymore. And she's like, I'm gonna kill all the souls of humanity. It's just like, okay, good to know you haven't changed at all. She's like, it's my penance. I have to kill everyone so no one remembers what I did.
Lie to Brand. Yeah, that's
I mean, I can't believe that.
Yeah, Rhapsodic, Vanille was able to hold off on becoming a Seath by lying to her brand about how long it had been.
Thing about Vanille, basically, she, the only one who can basically rein in when she, when she goes off the rails, and yeah, that one's Fang. When Fang's around, it's like Vanille gets her marbles together, and it's like, yeah, that's basically Fang's. I mean, she's relevant because in the end, I mean, she's the one who cracked Cocoon's shell because Vanille didn't want to do it, I guess. So Fang, in that sense, she has relevance historically in the first game. But her main role, I recall Cobb addressing this in the first video about trilogy that he made, about the Fang really doesn't change much. I mean, there's some changes, and as in her becoming more accepting of the party, but even so, she will, of course, ever place Vanille's well-being and safety over everyone else, regardless friends or foes, evidently. So, but I think Fang's real impact in the story throughout the trilogy is basically being there for Vanille and stopping her from making screwing things, which is like in Line Returns, it all boils down to them together in the end, instead of super killing the dead, guiding the souls of the dead to the Ark together, and by sharing the burden, Vanille doesn't have to die while doing so. So yeah.
Jim has a point in the chat.
Yep, I'm reading that now. Yeah, from the perspective of Pulse, Vanille is absolutely the hero, but it is very tragic. Everything she does with good intentions gets twisted and screwed up because the story is about how much she sucks about being a hero. even the event of the first attack on Cocoon, she screwed that up, and Fang had to step in.
And Etro intervened.
Yeah, she does that.
Great
And
job,
then Yule
Etro.
dies, and Caius gets more nuts.
So for those who doesn't know, because this is kind of in the data log and in one cutscene in OG, it's mentioned in the records of Grandpos with evident saltiness that when Fang attacked Cocoon as Ragnarok and broke the shell and stuff, Ether was like, I feel pity for the people of Cocoon because they're going to die tragically. I'm going to drain Fang from energy from Ragnarok, force her and Vanille into crystal stasis, and after that, they were placed in Cloudy Anima, and then came Barthandelus. They took Anima and some more pieces of land to reform Cocoon, and and that's how they ended up in Cocoon. So yeah.
It all comes back to Etro and her decisions and her gifts.
Worst gifts
So, yeah.
ever.
And Vanille is kind of the human version of Etro as far as good decisions.
Facts. Thank God she never gifted anybody anything.
everything always went to shit when Vanille tried independent thinking. Like when she's in a group, she's kind of fine, but leave her alone for too long, and she joins a cult.
Though this is kind of a theme for every single member of the party, in terms that if you take them away from, especially their significant one, but even so, if they're not in a team, they're really, really prone to make the same mistakes or screw things up. That's for all of the cast. That some get hit with more harder than others, but yeah, it happens to all of them.
2 minds are better than 1.
Mm-hmm.
AC Gears and Arms asks, can the Warrior of Light take care of Etro and the other gods? Like, are they primals?
I mean, if you want to,
crossover.
It's true.
Let's have to fight for the honor.
I mean, all they had to do to kill Etro was stab Caius.
So yeah, that's so yeah. But anyways, let's move on onto a different thing, because if we go into the complexities of how exactly easy it had to be in stabbing Caius, that's there's a reason why Caius had to. Well,
Read the
it's not
essay,
that
it's all
easy.
there.
Yeah.
It's all in there. No, but really, 13.2, it's time fuckery. I mean,
Yeah.
it's all time fuckery. Caius is the only one who does linear, so I focus on Caius. Because nothing else makes sense.
It's very true.
Well, hope in a sense, but there's the problem with the. Listen, we go there later. But yeah, Caius is the only one who does real linearity in 13.2. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would say Hope does too, to an extent, but 13.2 is just, oh my god. I feel like it was built on the bones of the third Chrono Trigger game that they were thinking about making and never did, and they're like, let's just recycle this for 13.2. Let's make the Historia crux, so we have all these different time periods you can go to, and we can just screw everything up. The only thing I miss is that we didn't get to go to some kid's house and just really royally screw them up and just see them be a dysfunctional adult, like as we hop 50 years later. That would have been icing on the cake for me. But I'm sure that was part of Snow's story, because he was hopping around in time as well. So yeah, and
that was a cactuar.
Yeah.
I mean, we already turned Hope into a dysfunctional adult, so we've got that.
You're not wrong.
Oh my god.
Everyone just left him. They fucked him up and then left him.
Well,
because he couldn't time travel, because Etro banned him. Because if he could have time traveled, he would have solved everything and there wouldn't have been a game.
Lightning quote, I won't abandon you.
Next scene. I'm leaving.
Like, but yeah. But 13.2, I mean, 13.2 is the one title I'm kind of, I have to embrace myself, like, okay, where
it's going to your brain.
Kind of, yeah, but at the same time, I can take merit from the choice of making time fuckery for what is. Makes no fucking sense. I mean, if a game is, because some other games or other narratives try to make sense of time travel and time fuckery, and they fail, of course. But 13.2 embraces it as, yeah, you just broke the world. Don't expect things to make sense. And that's bold, and that's brilliant, and that has my respect. Doesn't change that when I'm trying to analyze 13.2 storyline and chronology. There's no chronology really, and second, it's like, now I have to go through all of these eras that there's how this thing there's this thing that affects this thing and affects this thing, because it's like this sort of trying to piece things together that throughout the game as you play as Sarah Null, you don't really go into how fucked the world is, because you're like you're focused on, so maybe you hop into a really fucked up era, Academia 400 EF.
Oh, nightmare.
And then you go back and then you solve that paradox, and then it's like, and then you go back to Caius, and it's basically the Sarah Null's base more less about fixing time than more about pursuing Caius. But then if you do some side quests and stuff and visit different eras, then you start to realize how really fucked up the world is and how broken it's getting. At certain eras are really, really creepy. Like, do you remember? I think it's Yasha's Massive, not sure if it's 200 AF, with the red orbs that people are becoming, and they sound like traps. Yeah. So yeah, that's creepy. So
And
that's
who did all that?
yeah. Again. So in that aspect, I would say, why I'm taking the wheel so much? You guys speak.
I mean, I loved seeing Yasha's Massif, especially when Fenrir was in the sky, and just the haunting music, and that just hit me really hard. And I really enjoyed it, where there's all these events going on, and you're traveling and you're seeing people progress through time by leaps and bounds, and you're like, wow, the people really didn't need the fal'Cie at all. They're like an anchor around the neck of humanity. And then the fal'Cie decide that they want to screw everything up in the end anyway. But just, it was really weird just to see the threads of the world just coming apart. And having Noel there, who I nicknamed Batman, in Lightning Returns.
I mean...
Yeah, I mean, he was basically Batman. And he only came out at night. But having him there and just having him confirm that, I'm the last human alive. Everybody else died. It's all Cocoon's fault. It's all your fault. Benil escaped prison and killed everybody. But is just so good at delivering this feeling of dread that I really liked about 13-2. Also, the mutant chocobos were the best. They were assholes. They were amazing, and they had the best chocobo theme song I've ever heard in my
life. So yeah, you guys comment on 13-2. I don't really want to make it a monographic about myself.
Rhapsodic, well, I was shocked that he was there, just because I don't think it was nighttime, and it was like running into Bruce Wayne when he's Batman. I was like, oh my god. Sorry.
Personally, I hate time travel stories because it just never works. And yeah, they do embrace, like, yeah, the world is broken, but I also feel like they're lampshading it, like, the world is broken, but it's a paradox. It's a thing. Like, yeah, but it still doesn't work, like, story-wise, it doesn't work. Yeah, but it's a paradox.
Yeah,
it's fine.
They
really...
They liberally misuse the word paradox all the time in 13-2. They call things a paradox that aren't really paradoxes. I would say that they're more anomalies rather than paradox. It can be caused by a paradox, but they mean anomaly.
Yes. And every time they're like, please do not question this, they call it a paradox.
Yep, exactly. Because technically, thinking about it, the happy academia led by Hope, that's a paradox, because that shouldn't have happened.
Well, that's
Hope's actually there just trying to stitch everything together while it's all falling apart, powered on coffee the whole time.
True. And I mean, Alyssa's there steering him the entire time because she's a wonderful, kind, caring person.
I mean, it is incredibly implied that Alyssa is the wrong timeline. That's obviously she had the dreams to start with that she was in the grave. So Alyssa being the wrong timeline is suggested from the start, which also implies that every time it started going wrong, that was also the wrong timeline, and that Hope's happy academia was actually the correct timeline all along, and that all of the bad ones that they saw on the way is the incorrect timeline. But it's also time fuckery, so who knows if that's...
So what you're saying is that Kai is not the villain of 13-2, Alyssa is.
Oh, absolutely. That's why we all hate her on site.
Technically
Kai is my
speaking,
beloved.
she's. I mean, the thing about Alyssa is that you learn about most of her in the novel, which wouldn't have been the original plan, because if you check the 13-2 DLCs, there's one for Snow, there's one for Sass, there's one for Lightning. The only one missing is Hope. His DLC would have been based on. By the way, he was planned to be originally the third party member playable character, and then up until the beta, then decided to change it in exchange for the Parading Pack, the monsters. So
because you could destroy the plot in 5 minutes.
So what they did with both versions of Lightning, Sass and Snow, is adding a DLC episode, and then you complete the DLC, and you added them as a, between quotes, monster to the Parading Pack, and so you had them playable as third-party member. This Hope had a DLC planned, but it was scrapped, and this whole plot, which was about stopping Alyssa from assassinating him at Augusta Tower 400 AF, that was instead moved on to the novel fragments after. And this thing about Alyssa, because ever since the start, there's this thing about the first attempt, so to speak, as to refloat Cocoon, was creating a man-made fal'Cie. That was the first attempt, but it's specified in story in 13.2 in Augusta Tower to 100F that the plan was proposed by Alyssa and then directed by Hope, but the one who proposed it was Alyssa. So as far as Alyssa was concerned, and then we learned that Alyssa was the entire time conspiring to assassinate Hope, and the whole assassination that took place in 13AF backfired on her because the AI killed her too. So yeah, great game. But that ends up becoming the original, the fucked up Academia 400AF. So basically, even at Academia, the alternate version of Academia, which is not we call it alternate because it has the X in the name, but it's actually the how Academia should be. As far as Alyssa's there, it's still a wrong timeline, and then Sarah Knoll corrected, and that's when Alyssa disappears from basically the timeline. I mean, she was never alive because she died in the purge. I mean, she was alive until the moment she died in the purge. It's kind of different as to what happened, as to what later in line returns the story had in store for Hope, so to speak. You know what I'm talking about, but we'll go about that later. So yeah, so that's a really, but that's actually a fairly background plot line that as you're focused on Sarah Knoll, you don't realize all of this until you sit down and pause to think. You don't realize all this shit is happening with the rest of the characters. So
I really don't want to think about how Alyssa was the one who contributed to a lot of the science that led up to Academia 400 that was kind of just absorbed by hope like that. But Alyssa, she was dead, but her science lived on because paradox, maybe.
Evil
Yeah,
science.
not really paradox. It's kind of explained as of what happens because of the human spirit connections, like humanity's network. In that Alyssa wasn't really dead in terms of the soul and the spirit. She was not erased. She was simply she died, but because of time fuckery, that's sort of memories. That Hope doesn't have memories of Alyssa, but the timeline still sort of transferred her knowledge, or maybe he realized that we don't know, because since he's affected by the time changes, it's kind of, this is one of the source of my many
Headaches.
headaches. Yes, in regards to the chronology of Hope. But yeah, and in that sense, I think this entire episode is like the prelude or the foreshadowing of Hope becoming sort of like this kind of the one who holds humanity's entire the entire thread of humanity, which later becomes, well, it goes how it goes, and well, let's leave it for later. But yeah, it's also introduced the concept very vaguely of humanity's network transcending time and space, which is kind of, I mean, it's a narrative excuse, but at the same time it kind of works. So yeah, I don't really, when it comes to the 13-2, I don't really want to place myself in a really, like, I'm not dying in any hill. I'm like, yeah.
I'm just laughing at AC Gears and Arms quoting the Shadowbringers intro screen.
Which you did, but I mean, I noted the lyrics to you actually. So anyway,
It's a good one. So, if you don't mind helping me out, someone made a rather cute comment. Academia has no sun. It's a misconception. The light we see there is actually the energy radiating out of Hope's coffee consumption does. Which, first off, absolutely great. And second off, it's been a little while since I did the lore dive run. I didn't specifically remember that there wasn't a sun in Academia. Is that correct?
Yeah, so in the first version of Academia we go to at 400 AF, it's nighttime and it's raining and there's awesome music. And then we fix everything. We go to Academia 4XX, whatever. It's sunny and bright. Everyone's happy. Music is terrible. And there's no rain. But it's the same time, which is really weird because it's night in one version, but it's day in the other. And there's nothing really saying that, you know, it's a different day, even though I'm assuming that's the assumption. I think they did it more for mood. But I like to think that the original 400 Academia, the world became tidally locked and it was just always in darkness.
Interesting.
Kind of like how what happened in Nier.
Well, I was to say that's a thing that happens, celestially speaking, that's a thing that happens to planets as they lose energy.
Mm-hmm.
They get old, you know. So that's just, thank you. I didn't specifically remember that. And I was like, fortunately, I'm surrounded by people who will know.
That was just my hot take on it. I don't know if there's an actual in-game explanation. I will open the floor up for that.
I mean, technically, Grandpa's does have a son, so yeah. What the world doesn't have is a moon. Name Moon. I mean, Grandpa's has Cocoon, which is artificial in a sense that Lindsay made it. Then it goes down, and Hope makes the new Cocoon, which is therefore known as it's the first time the people of the world actually come up with the word moon as to refer to the new Cocoon, which yeah. So there's that.
And that's
Which
like
makes sense because Cocoon is a mouthful.
Mm.
Blood of
So-
Bells is even more of a mouthful.
I mean, the Hope's, let's say, planet, satellite, whatever you want to call it, it has many. It's referred by 4 names basically. He christened it Bunivosa. It's also known as the New Cocoon. It's also known as the Ark. And it's also known as the Moon by the people of the Surfers. So yeah, 4 names, 4 different names.
It's kind of the start of his journey of like not. It's not a typical person thing to do to create a moon. It's more like, the transition to, Jesus, God. I mean, Bunivelsa chose him for a reason. He already created a planet. He had, yeah.
Are we
Extra
going down?
locked him out of the time gates, so he figured, okay, well, I'm going to make my own time travel.
Yes.
And he spends centuries sleeping, dreaming of his new world with, blackjack and hookers. And he is very much set apart from other humans. He's on this very godlike status compared to them. And yeah, it very much is foreshadowing what happens to him later on.
Yes, that's kind of a warning sign when a person starts creating celestial bodies. It's kind of a red flag. When you invent your own time travel and you create your moons, like leader of humanity accidentally, he just slips into godhood. Oops.
And then there's Proto-Falsiadam.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he also accidentally makes a new god as well.
There are
Which
many
I
red
called
flags.
that.
All the red flags.
But are we going down this page already, or are we commenting on Sarah Noel and the whole cast in general, avoiding Hope?
I mean, if we are diving down this Hope rabbit hole, let's go.
Should we mention Lightning? Because
Who?
people do tend to... Exactly. It's like the Lightning saga, and I mean, we know she's not the main character, but should we address her anyway?
Well, I mean, Lightning, she flashes hot and bright, and then she's gone, and no one remembers it.
Can I at least go on my rant about how TV tropes gets her so wrong?
No.
Yes.
Please.
Yes.
Please.
Yes, you can.
Please.
Okay, so it absolutely, I love Lightning. I absolutely drives me crazy that she is treated like this cold, stoic character who is just an XP of Cloud, etc. But the thing that she got from Cloud is her trauma. And that's 90% of her character in the first game is that she is incredibly traumatized. She is a lovely, warm-hearted, emotional person who is traumatized, going through childhood trauma, raised her sister from the age of 15. Now she's 21 and she has absolutely no idea what to do with her own life. All she knows is taking care of Sarah. And that's how she's lived her life, is working to take care of Sarah. Then we meet her in the game. We see her being a soldier, that she's angry and, in a bad place, like the rest of the cast in the very beginning of the game, when we haven't realized why they're in this deep, dark place in the worst 24 hours of their life. And everyone assumes, oh, that's Lightning. She's this cold, stoic soldier, and she's angry at Snow, and she hates him, and she's mean to everyone. But even before we get into the Vestige, which is when most people give up the game, she has that lovely moment of vulnerability where she tells Saz to cover his ears and look away. And Saz thinks, oh God, she's going to explode the door. And she doesn't. She puts her forehead gently against the door and she whispers softly, please let me in. I'm sorry, please let me in. And that's the moment you see that Lightning is actually not just this cold, stoic character. She's an emotional woman with, thoughts and feelings, and she's got a warm heart and she's got vulnerability to her. So everyone should know that, and they don't, and it drives me crazy. Absolutely drives me crazy. And then obviously she goes through this character development throughout the first game. We get to see more of her. She opens up to Hope. They share the very similar trauma of losing their mother at a young age, which is the start of them bonding. And we get to see her develop into what we'd later know her as, a warmer character with smiles and being able to work as a team and a generally more affable person. And then she completes that character journey later on, but we can get to that later. But
Yeah, I love that. And
X3 full.
I think the scene I fell in love with Lightning was the one I mentioned earlier, where she's trying to be Sarah's mom instead of her sister, in regards to Snow, and it was at that moment when it kind of clicked with me, where I was like, oh, okay, she's being forced to play this role that she is neither comfortable or ready for, and she's doing the best she can, and she's doing everything she can to just hold things together, and sometimes she can't. And that was when I was like, this is awesome.
And it does take her 3 full games to get through that trauma.
Yeah,
It's deep. It's really deeply rooted.
some
And she needs
counseling would have
help
been
the
help-
whole way.
Some counseling would have been awesome. If I'm sure they have some as part of the Guardian Corps.
The Valhalla break wasn't really helping.
yeah,
I do
it
have to
doesn't.
say that it's a good lesson, though. Like, you're not going to get through trauma on your own. And just because someone puts up a strong front doesn't mean they're not suffering.
Yeah, it doesn't help that the progress she made in the first game was completely and utterly ruined by, guess who? Etro.
No, that's
Petro.
that's actually true. In the I mean, it's more, and it's kind of sad because when you meet Lightning in 13.2, she speaks of Etro as in the vibe of the benevolent goddess of death, and she does sympathize with Etro in her chapter in Fragments After. But the reality is that Etro guilt-tripped Lightning into believing that she had to atone with eternal servitude for the lives she had taken as a lessee fighting for survival, actually. So, because Etro felt pity for the soldiers of Psychom and everyone who died, while the lessee were trying to not get killed, and she kind of. There's no sugarcoating. She guilt-tripped Lightning into that, and actually made Lightning believe that Etro was on the right. So yeah.
Gaslighting. Etro, another crime on her list. Gaslighting.
So
Hold on. So we've got gatekeep and we've got gaslight. Does she qualify as girl boss too?
boss.
She keeping that time gate.
yeah, do talk Hope about that. But anyways, he really actually doesn't need it. I mean, I bet in the end he was like, Etro, again, screw yourself with your time gates. I'm going to make my own. I'm not following your any god's rules. I'm going to make my own rules.
That's what it does all the time when the god says no. He's like, I'm gonna make my own. The gods say, you can't have this. Hope says, I'll make my own.
How about I do anyway?
There's only so many times you can get kicked around by fate before you start kicking back.
Yeah. So do we want to go into Sarah Null before moving on to Line Returns?
I don't know what else to say about them. Noel is kind of there. I don't really have too much to say about him. He's like,
one thing.
Okay.
He tells Caius, when Caius does his speech, yes, we're back on my beloved Caius.
No, I'm laughing because I know exactly which point are you going to bring up.
Yes! Shut up, brain cell. I'm doing this. He tells Noel about all the Yules he's lost. Hundreds of them. He's mourning. He's telling Noel about why he needs to set Yule free. And Noel says, I knew one, and that was enough. You motherfucker. I knew
the
one.
audacity of youth.
I knew one Yule, and that was enough. little bitch. That's my opinion.
No, I mean, I mean, it's valid. It's like, I'm going to school this man who has lost like how many youths, more or less, hundreds
One-ish.
of one-ish.
100
Yeah.
for 1500 years, approximately.
I mean, Caius could have replied, you only met one Yule, I met one-ish Yule. Fuck you, no.
One-ish girl.
Yeah. As for Sarah, well, in my opinion, I personally, when I have to write Sarah, it's kind of weird because people say that I write Sarah really well. I'm like, well, I haven't dived too much into Sarah, but for some reason I get her fairly right. But I think it's because Sarah overall is likely the most healthy and mentally stable character of all the cast. Maybe Sass is up there at times when the games are not screwing around with Dash. But overall, Sarah is like, with difference, the most stable character of the cast. So yeah, she knows
Certainly
what's,
emotionally stable.
I would say
she knows what's, yeah, she knows what she wants. She has her emotions in place. She is determined. She is intelligent. She, despite if you want to make her an airhead, which 13.2 allows you to, but that's not the canonical version of Sarah. Even though she is snarky in her own way. So yeah.
I think, when we meet a lot of the characters in the flashbacks where they start off a lot more stable than they are when we actually start to play as them. Case in point, Snow, even though, he's very reckless, emotionally, he's very consistent and very stable. And then, all this terrible stuff happens to him. And, then he meets Vanille and his life is ruined.
I mean, Snow, he lived for a long time. And I mean, at the end of, when we reach Lightning Returns, I mean, he's not in a great place, not at all, but he's kind of kept it together pretty okay during the circumstances, During the circumstances, he kind of kept it together-ish.
He has big sentinel energy.
Wow.
Yeah. He has a repeated character journey. So in the first game, his main character journey is about his doubts, and how he's pulled back from those doubts by the rest of the team, and in particular, like when Lightning trusts him, and with regards to Sarah. And then it ends up repeating again in Lightning Returns, where he's going through this huge period of doubt, where he's believing that everything's going wrong. He's made all the wrong decisions. There's no fixing it. And then Lightning comes along and it's like, have faith in Sarah. And she kind of pulls him from that doubt and brings him back into the Snow, the absolute himbo that we know and love. And it's a very repeated character journey, which happens with a few of the other characters as well. But although they're in very different situations in the two games, he's got a very similar emotional journey because he is reasonably stable in that point.
I mean, he doesn't do a Caius.
No.
Whereas Noel was kind of, I mean, he admitted himself that he was kind of the bored of doing the same.
I would say there's also an element of naivety to Snow, where he is very naive when we first meet him. He thinks that he can tackle everything. And, it's not just that he becomes jaded. I think there's an element of him becoming more grounded in there, too.
Agreed.
I mean, yeah.
Kind of a coming of age thing.
I mean, but that's more like, I mean, where do we get to know? Is it in the books? With Chaotic Era, how he created his little city and how he made like infrastructure and all those really, really fucking adult things.
So-
he made things work.
Things
He
I
made
wanted
you
to
smell
know,
work.
and they don't explain in the
So-
game.
So that's the whole thing about the chaotic era, which is crammed in reminiscence, and bless them for that. But actually, the Chronicle of a Chaotic Era, which is Hope's memories of the time period between 500 AF and the final 13 days. That was going to originally be a separate book, which would have been likely from the character's point of view instead of a retelling. But the author fell ill and it was incomplete, and they had to scrap it, and they had to cram it in the final novel, which is not very long, which is like, you could have. That's where you learn. And there's some snippets of the chaotic era that you can, if you find Noel and you find Snow, you can ask them. And Vanille makes a very general overview of that, but yeah, it's not really touched what the characters went through during that era, instead, unless you read the novel. And basically Snow became paid. The thing is. Do I have to explain the interlude between 500F and Nine Returns myself?
Probs.
Yes.
Everything went to shit. They tried their best. They had good intentions, and then shit. They tried and tried and tried. Time wasn't working. The world wasn't working. They tried to make things work anyway, and then everything derailed.
I mean, there's always this comment that always comes through in the ending of 13-2 when Sarah dies and stuff, and then Hope comes to greet Sarah and Noel after their return, and it's like he came running to because first Sarah had promised him lightning, second they had just saved the world, and he comes to this scenery just to first. Sarah's dead. There's no lightning. The new cocoon is basically going to shit. There's time breaks. The goddess is dead. Lightning. What this he doesn't know, but lightning is in crystal, and it's like I'm kind of wondering how the fuck he wasn't like, I'm going to jump ship right now and await the embrace of the dead cold ground.
Because he wanted to become God. You know, he had a perfect opportunity there. Everything, I mean, it couldn't get worse.
And then it did.
Then it did. They tried. The trio who were left, Snow, Hope, and Noel, they decided to try. And they all just, they kept going until they could not keep on going. That's basically it. They kept it together until there was nothing left to keep together.
Yeah,
So-
humanity did basically what they'd done ever since Hope became the leader of the academy. Everything went to shit and they turned in his direction and said, now what? And left him to deal with it.
Not wrong.
And Hope was like continuously, he did not want to rule, he did not want this, but he did also know that he was the most qualified to do so. Like, no one else could do it. So he did it. He became Meowth. Hope, the noun.
I hate you. I
The noun,
hate you.
not the person. I'm so glad you squeezed that in there.
I've been waiting for 1.5 hours.
I've been waiting too.
I mean,
So, should we get into Hope? Let's.
I would
Meow,
actually
go
first.
ahead. Go ahead.
No, I would actually first ask Cobb and Neela about their impressions on Nine Returns before I go ham on the topic.
So, I'll go first and just jump in here. I did not know what to make of Hope in the first game. I knew Meowth really liked Hope, but I was like, all right, he's the annoying kid that everyone rags on. And about halfway through the game, I was like, oh, you know what? He's pretty good. I like this kid. And then in 13.2, I just absolutely fell in love with him. And by the time we get to Lightning Returns, I was like, he was my boy. He's the boy. And so.
And then you don't know until
And
it's
then you
too
don't
late.
know. And I'm like, I felt like, you know, in The Godfather, my boy, what did they do to my boy? Why is he small again? And just, you know, playing the game to try and find out, you know, what happened to Hope. And when you find out, I was just like, I remember the moment when it was like, I mean, Lightning kept talking about killing Bonavelza, and I was like, but why? Like, I don't understand why she's so murderous against him. And then the thing happened, and I was like, let's go kill God.
I remember that moment too, when you realized.
Yep. And then it got worse. I was like, I'm ready to destroy this guy.
I feel like "and then it got worse" should be the tagline of the trilogy.
Oh no. I really wish at that moment I had just it had cut to Bonavelze just sleeping or waking up or whatever, and then that clip plays, and then he knew he fucked up.
Trying to remember if I had any specific impressions that I wanted to bring up from 2. Mostly I found the time travel simultaneously entertaining from like, oh, this is fun. We just pop around here, always see these changes, and also infuriating because time travel is difficult to execute well. And I think they did a good job of not taking it seriously. And I think they did a good job of just like, instead of sweating the details, just being like, wash it away. But at times I'm still like, explain.
It's a paradox. That's
Yeah,
all you need to know.
I hate you.
The explain sentiment still goes on to this day in many things. So yeah, you're not alone.
Squint with your brain. Squint with your brain.
So
Subscribe to
yeah,
Squeeze in once. Square Enix, explain yourselves, you assholes.
There she goes.
Thank you.
so this is this. Yeah, I'm going. So I asked you guys about Lightning Returns in hopes of trying to make you talk about Lightning's story in Lightning Returns, and then you went to Hope, and I'm like, yeah, kind of accurate, but that's kind of accurate, but that was not what I was aiming for, because if I was like, I want everything else to be kind of discussed before we go into the real
The meat.
yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
There was one other thing when you got a moment.
Go.
Sorry. Okay. Yeah, no, I had thought of this and then I'd forgotten it because that's what my brain does. But at the very beginning, when we first met Caius, I was like, oh, who's this guy? I was like, oh, he's the bad guy. Oh, this will be fun. And then we got to the end, and I feel like they did a really good job of like, he doesn't change. The characters, the player, and our perspective changed. I think someone was mentioning this in chat earlier, which reminded me of it. And I was like, oh yeah, that was possibly the best part of the whole game, was that instead of the antagonist going on a journey, you, the player, are going on a journey, and you're like, oh okay. It was well done. I appreciated that.
It's
Agreed.
open at the close, and you're the one who's done the journey. Really, you see everything differently. But
Absolutely.
if you're gonna say anything about Lightning in Lightning Returns, it's you have to keep in mind that the protagonist is not necessarily the main character.
That is the understatement of the entire trilogy.
Yes. You need
the
to like
understatement of all time.
But
Lightning pushes things forward ish. We play as Lightning, so we see her as the protagonist, but we do slowly come to realize it's not about her. It's not about her.
And And that's when wait screens go to the graveyard to die.
When Cobb's heart broke.
It didn't break. I was just kind of like, well, I don't need these anymore.
I think I recall the moment when in Line Returns in which you realize, and it happened to be the Wildlands, which is appropriate actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I was like, when you were describing earlier, Cobb, that there's I think it's worth making a point here, because you said I understand that you meant as that was what you wanted to know, as in Line Returns trying to find out what happened to Hope, but that's not the intention of the game. Really, that's not where the game is pushing you, and it does it deliberately. Like sometimes it peppers a weird line or a strange comment that you more than once address as what, and it all stems from people either not understanding Line Returns, which is understandable on a first run. Though you did very well on your own. And Line Returns is a game that's meant to be replayed a number of times. I replayed Line Returns like 9 times already, and I still find new things. So it's like, and I do take care of mentally processing everything, and the fact that I still find new things, like, oh my god, this is bottomless. I'm going to spend like 30 years of my life. I've already spent a decade. So I'm going to spend the next 20 years trying to unravel this shit, or what?
I like to take credit for the moon rings.
Go. That actually broke me, and I had to play it cool.
I want to hear about that, because I was like, why does the moon have rings? It's Bunavelze, the new cocoon that Hope launched up in the air, but why does it have rings? I don't get why it has rings. And I just casually mentioned it, and Meowth was like, oh. And then Meowth just like, I don't know what was going on in the admin chat at that moment, but Meowth came back like a week later, like, with this whole new theory and stuff, and I was like, oh, okay.
No, I mean, there's a reason we call the arc jokingly, well, not so jokingly actually, another one of our trademarks being calling it Jesus Jail.
Yeah.
Because the arc, I mean, for Lightning is her headquarters, but for Hope, it's basically a prison. And it's basically a Bunavelze was kind enough to make his own work his containment base, so to speak. So when you see the arc, it's I think I recall Cobb mentioning that it was kind of in the open, but Hope mentioned that he can't leave the arc one time actually in an entire game, just the day before. Well, that happened. Yeah. So he actually, well, yeah, the day in which technically that happened. Otherwise, you would have no idea explicitly addressed that Hope can't leave the arc. Maybe you're left wondering why he doesn't join Lightning on the surface, even though she actually threatens him when he gets a bit too cheeky. She does threaten him, like, how about we change places, you bastard? but yeah, that's kind of their glorious banter in the third game. But yeah. So as for the rings, I was kind of, when Cobb mentioned this, you have to keep in mind that Cobb was coming to the trilogy blind, and we veterans are kind of at a very deep place as of now, that some things we kind of take for granted, and we don't pause to think about anymore, because they're like at very much surface level. So Cobb brings up a very surface level thing as in design, which is the rings around the arc, and I was like, oh, I don't really have an answer for. And then I recall the ending, the end game in which Bunibelce does have Hope's soulless body between in the strings, and he has these rings around him, as in keeping him in place. And I was like, oh fuck! It's like a restrainment belt of sorts. It's like it could mean nothing, but it could be aesthetic, but in terms of symbolism, it does feel like an added restrainment thing. That I don't know if it makes sense, and that's when the moment I was like, oh fuck, and I had to play it cool because I couldn't tell Cobb that this was Jesus jail. So yeah, so also the other thing I wanted to address is that the game tricks, and it did trick Cobb. You did so yourself. Say so yourself. The game tricked you into. Of course, I was kind of nudging you into pay attention to Hope and Lumina, but the game does a really great job of distracting you from Hope. Not so much Lumina, but does a great job for distracting you from Hope, which is amusing because he is constantly speaking to you. So it hits the harder the moment you realize that, oh, I hadn't paused to think about Hope this entire time.
Yeah.
Well, they do a good job of making him seem almost like the background, like he's a set piece. It's sneaky.
Yeah, and the game lulled me into taking him for granted, and then it yanked him away, and I was like, oh, let's go kill God.
It was a wonderful moment when you realized that your boy.
My boy, my son.
It's meant to be. As you pointed out in the video with line returns and 14 references. In which case, this isn't a 14 reference anyway. There's so many, yeah. But Lightning in line returns, even though she's kind of like the face, and the game is named after her. She's the player insert in line returns, and well, of course, she's her own character, and she has, like, as you said, the stated goal of rescuing Sarah and stuff.
She becomes her own character in that game, but she starts as the player insert.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and yeah. And everything you learn from the game itself, it's basically what Hope tells you. And if you realize, Hope is always the entire thing. Yeah, Lightning is chosen to be the savior and save everything, but you haven't. But explicitly stated, you have no other direction from Bunibelce, who is supposed to be the CEO. And instead, what you have is the one you have directing you the entire time and telling you where to go, what to do, and setting the board is Hope, even though you don't really realize that he's sending you to where he wants you to be in order to set everything from the final moment, have everything ready for him to, by proxy, enact the plan that he can't do, or put him. He only can put the places and make sure that everything is going according to it, because he's not just going to be discarded as in the soul, but he's also going to be used as Bunibelce's mouthpiece. So right. Yeah, so it's kind of, it's basically, well, this whole, I don't really want to monopolize the conversation, though. Comment on that. I know. I just want to give you guys room, because I don't want this to become a monologue. Go ahead, please.
You mean Hope, who spends all game going, well, this is all the things that Bunibelce wants you to do. It would be a real shame if you did something completely opposite. But don't worry, if you do, I'm definitely on your side.
It really takes a second playthrough to realize, to really listen to what Hope says and what he doesn't say. He phrases things so deliberately And yeah, he's he's such a sneak with how he speaks in general. He yeah, when you analyze what he tells you, yeah, he's so deliberate with how he words things.
Hope has had hundreds of years as a politician. He's a master manipulator by this point, and he knows Lightning really, really well. So he knows which buttons he needs to push to get her to start questioning the things that she's, maybe not seeing initially because she's got her Sarah blinders on.
And it's like Bunivelse, he can't say things straight out, so he politics. He uses those politician skills to get around those bans Bunivelse put on him to still get Lightning to that place where, hey, I mean, it would be bad to kill God, but what if we kind of killed God? It's not like you shouldn't. You should absolutely not kill God, but if you were. Mm.
And how about I write a play that tells you exactly how to do it?
You shouldn't, but
No, you totally
this is
should.
how you should.
But here's how you do it.
I'll even tell you what to say.
But you shouldn't. But
you shouldn't. But if you do, I'm with you.
Yeah.
It's and I mean there come we don't really go. Well, we actually should go into the sin trademark it in the sense of
the sin.
in the sense of in some. It actually more it actually affects Bunibelsa, but we don't talk about it. Well, we should talk about that, but in the terms of how the English translation or localization of Hope's farewell isn't wrong per se. It's just that you have to be used to how Hope uses the third person and his self-deprecation tendencies to understand that when he goes third person and talks about himself as in third person, like that wasn't, or like in this way. He does. It's not the first time he does it. He does it every time he wants to detach himself from something, right? So you have to be kind of used to his way of speech to not be confused in this scene into believing that Hope was not in control of himself or was entirely possessed. Hope is only possessed by Bunibelsa after Bunibelsa awakens in the Cathedral of Luxerion. Though this should be obvious because it's when the voice changes and he glows and all that, but again, in any case, you have to kind of know how he disassociates with his very bad habit that he has. He has a lot of very bad habits, but but that's one of his way of detachment, and he wants to. In that scene, I mean, in the end, he says that yes, I was a pawn for Bunibelsa. What he doesn't tell Lightning is that he was playing Bunibelsa at the same time. but again, with Hope is in Lightning Returns is more about what he doesn't say, but about more than what he says. You really have to read between lines with him. Because surprise, people usually think that Lightning is the closed-off, stoic, cold one that is close off to her emotions. But if we're talking about someone who actually doesn't wear his heart on his sleeve at all, that would be Hope Estime.
You mean Lightning, who writes in her diary throughout the entirety of Lightning Returns, going, "Oh, I want to find love, and I want to find people I trust, and oh, what's in it for the future for me?" She's literally writing a diary in every single loading screen about how she wants to look to the future and shows all her emotions. And then you've got Hope in the act going, "Yeah, I don't really plan on having this family barbecue you're planning in the new world. It's fine."
Yeah.
And then lightning stalks him down and makes him have a barbecue anyway.
The Uno reverse card.
So, you want to comment on that before? I don't really want to go into rants, really. I don't...
Well, I mean, it's
It's
way too
inevitable.
late for that. But no,
Just embrace it.
I think it's interesting that people call Lightning, stoic and emotionless when she's very much not, especially in Lightning Returns. She's just being actively manipulated, and I feel like Hope is the one trying to keep everything kind of level. If that makes sense.
Leveled as...
Like, even-headed. Like, he's not trying to show any... Well, he's trying to show emotions as best he can, but, he's been sundered at that point.
And
Yeah, at the beginning of the game,
also
it's
has.
Go ahead.
You can go ahead.
Who takes the SF? You do.
Well, I was just going to say, Lightning also has her own internal stuff going on with Lumina, where she's facing a lot more of her, the parts of herself that she distanced herself from years ago. And there's very much an emotional healing going on throughout the game with that, too.
Yeah, super right.
And I think sometimes when she comes off as stoic and she is a very, very emotional young woman who doesn't know how to handle it. She just cut everything off when she was 15, when she had to take care of Sarah. So all of those emotions have just piled up, and she has refused to deal with them. So now she's basically an emotional wreck, and she doesn't know how to deal with it. And we see that in the diary. She keeps up this front because she doesn't know anything else. That's what she does. But we do get the insight in those entries that there's a lot of emotions going on there, and I have no idea how people can miss that.
Yeah, in the first game, she's very much, I've lived on the Falsey leash all my life and I don't know where to go from here. Then in the second game, she's living on Etro's leash as her knight and following that path and doesn't have to think about what she wants for herself. And then in the third game, at first, she's just following, she's on Bunavels's leash as she thinks, following his plan, and she doesn't know what she needs to do for herself or what she wants to do for herself. But she's now starting to think about it. She's being confronted by Lumina, who's asking her, what do you want from the future and things like that. And she's having to confront it, and she is actively thinking about it for the first time in a very long time. And that's when we start to see it in her diary entries.
Right, and she has to think about it as being something more than just centered around Sarah, because Sarah is getting ready to move on once they get her back. She's going to marry Snow, she's going to have her own life, and Lightning is starting to realize that she needs a life that's not just about Sarah.
And she doesn't know how to deal with it.
I feel like that's the big turning point of Lightning Returns, too, because the entire time she's trying to do and save Sarah. She's trying to do things for Sarah, save her. Everything she's doing is for Sarah. And she never just stops and just thinks about what she wants and what she wants to do. And when she finally does, that's when she finally realizes what's going on.
Yeah, it's kind of like endgame. The endgame of Lightning Returns is like the turning point for Lightning. Is that she's been confronted like by this question, and she really doesn't want to address this question when directly asked, most often by Lumina, of course, makes sense. But it's not until the final day that she really that another piece is added into that's first. The final day is when the tunnel vision blindfold falls apart, because she realizes that because tunnel vision in regards to Sarah, she has failed to notice that basically what the player realizes, that Hope has been there and he had been a prisoner right under her nose, and because she failed to see what was going on, now she may have lost him forever. And that's the first time she realizes that she had taken something for granted that she shouldn't have taken for granted, just as the player realizes that. And then comes the of course, Lightning is resolved to, in that scene, she's resolved to save him, which something that he didn't account for. I can touch upon that later. But I mean, coming from a Sunder Soul and one part of a Sunder Soul being sublimated, that's kind of difficult. Not to mention basically impossible. But then we go into the cathedral. We stop Benil from performing the Soul Song. Instead, we get Fang to add her powers to Benil, so they can save the souls of the dead. And that's when Yule and Lumina appear, and Lumina reveals that all this time Sarah's soul has been safely tucked away inside her when Bunibelsa separated her from Lightning's crystal stasis. And then we get Sarah, and it turns out that she has been safe the entire time. There was no reason to worry. And immediately after comes the scene in which Bunibelsa awakens in Hope's possessed body, and it's like, oh, so the end game isn't about saving Sarah at all.
I mean, I feel yeah.
So that whole thing about throwing hands with the top god of the Fabula Crystallis universe is not. First, you have to consider Lightning at this point could have. I mean, if not because Bunibelsa's plans of reenacting the plenty. This is 14 jargon, but anyways, basically trying to misguidedly deprive humans of grief and sorrow, and therefore no joy. But that he doesn't know. He understands no sorrow and no grief equates bliss, but doesn't understand the nuances because, well, he doesn't have a spirit. So it's not really his fault per se. It's a misunderstanding in mentality between humans and gods or mechanical beings like Falsi. So that's it's
Emperor's fault somehow.
Yeah, it's Bunibelsa is not really what actually makes Bunibelsa the real. So here's the thing: Bunibelsa per se tried genuinely to save humanity because he is the god of creation and he's supposed to be the protector of the physical realm, and humans are living in that realm. But he wanted to be a good god for them, and he was unable to understand the spirit, and so his reasoning was, well, if I can't understand it as I am, maybe I should find someone through whose eyes I can see and understand this. And that led to that led to Hope
Bad
always
things.
being in the receiving end of fate's stake. And so that's
Who's the most godlike person? He checked humanity, who's the most godlike among these? He created a planet. He sounds like a good candidate.
Yeah, and with that came an entire shit show for Hope. But yeah, but I can go into that later. But yeah, Bunibelsa per se is not It's not your standard god villain of Final Fantasy. He's ignorant, he's misguided, but he had good intention. The problem is that he happened to. So here's the thing: he chooses a vessel through whose eyes he can understand humanity, and in the process of being a perfectionist, he breaks the vessel, so he can neither see emotions and deprives Hope of being able to see emotions as well, which actually ends up playing in Hope's benefit. But anyways, benefit between many quotations, but
Universe did an oops.
Definitely Etro's father.
yeah. So in this sense, I mean, when the killing his mother was not because he wanted to kill Muin. He thought that he was freeing creation from the curse of death, which he sees as a. Only later, when Etro dies and the cycle of life and death is screwed up and the world screwed up with that, it's only then that he understands that the world needs the cycle of life and death, and that's why he decides, okay, Lightning has experience with the shit, so maybe she will make a good new goddess. So there's that. So yeah. So he's not really. The problem is that the localization, the same trademarker, decided to. I don't know why exactly. We've theorized many times as of why they chose to heavily alter Bunnivel's motivations, and but I can't really put my finger on that. All I know is that the greatest screw up in the trilogy.
Yep.
Do we want to talk about that?
Yeah, but please take the wheel.
So, yeah, Bunnivelze I thought was really interesting because we see a lot of development with him too. Between what we know of him, we don't really meet him until the end, but from what we learn of him, where he doesn't understand human emotions by the end, where he is screaming and basically professing his love for Lightning, because he's been corrupted by Hope's soul, which is the part of Hope's soul that he took and accidentally got inside him. So don't let Hope inside you. He gives you motions and feels.
And there's the big difference in the translation.
Yes.
Like you said in the comments, Bunnivelze is a lot more, clear. He expresses exactly what he thinks about Lightning in the Japanese version. He is very clear about his feelings for Lightning. But in the English version, they really downplayed that part. And by doing so, they kind of downplayed Hope. And Hope's, how Hope affected Bunnivelze.
Without Hope, Bunnivelze does not even have a voice. The Falsi, and the gods do not have voices like humans do. And so that's why in the Japanese you have Yukikaji doing the voice of both Hope and of Bunnivelze. And then part of the sin is also the fact that they really, by changing who the voice actor for Bunnivelze was, took away a lot of the story hints and foreshadowing for why Lightning would even know to search for the other part of Hope's soul inside of Bunnivelze.
Yeah, the change of voice actor is, big part of the sin, and not just because of a translation sin. It's Vincent would have made an amazing Bunny.
God, yeah.
He would have nailed it.
So
Yeah.
we keep dancing around the sin, but let's dive into it.
Yeah.
Again? Okay.
Oh, Cess, you should. I think you should take the lead on this one.
I want everyone to participate. I don't want to monopolize this thing. Okay. So in terms of the sin, basically, that's how we refer to the translation and localization issues, which is a one-time thing that otherwise the localization of Line Returns is great. I don't have any. I mean, everything works as it's supposed to do. But it's this one screw up that makes for players that are unaware of the original version not understand Hope's role in the story. And how in the end, which I was trying to get to before I derail as usual, how the end game is not about... it's, of course, there's the... at the point Lightning decides to throw hands with Bunbelsa, she still doesn't know that Bunbelsa is going to try again to purify the souls, blah, blah, blah. She doesn't know that. She goes to throw hands because she wants Hope back. That's basically the reason in the end. So, and if... and that's I mean, it's the end game is that basically they take Sarah away from the equation in a sense, and the end game is about saving Hope. And this was addressed by the developers as well, so it's not like I'm making up facts of anything else here. But anyways, I think it should be obvious anyway. But so this
Who
is
is
the thing.
the last soul Lightning will save?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll go into that. So the thing is, as Eftal mentioned, the gods of the Fabula Nova Crystallis do not speak with voices. They communicate through sensations, images. Like, for example, when we see Pulse in OG, he doesn't communicate with the party. He only gives them the focus, which is in these fragmented images of Ragnarok in the end, right? With Etro, Lightning communicates with her sort of telepathically, and that's when... And there's no words on Etro's part in the chapter when it's novelized, that first encounter with Etro. So yeah, so Bunbelsa is the same, but
Bunbelsa communicated through the feeling of the warmth of the sunlight on her body.
Exactly, yeah. That's when that's the... I mean, she was in crystal stasis, so I guess we can say that it was a dream-like communication of sorts, in which, in this case, Bunbelsa doesn't need a voice to communicate with her, right? But in the end, when he does have to communicate with her, and in any case, it's not exactly to her, but also because in his plan, his plan was to inhabit Hope's body as a vessel in the new world, as humanity's new god that he considered. That the way he voices it in Japanese, I descended to this lowly state to become a good god for you and walk among you. So the way he's saying this, he's basically providing himself with a nice human body to be human amongst humans. The point is that he fails to realize that, that's not exactly... Things are not going to exactly play out the way you do, and besides, Lightning is not having that. So that's the real drama in Endgame, actually. So there's that, and of course it's... Bunbelsa explains more or less in Japanese what he did too is a really understatement. The process of vesselification for Hope, which is... I thought it was vague, but when Kov caught the implications right up, I was like, yeah, definitely not so vague. And
No, not at all.
Japanese version is body horror.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still body horror anyway.
And he's talking about molding him as a vessel while he's beating his body around like a little puppet.
That's okay. It can take it now.
So that's another thing that I really want to address later, but yeah. So this is a big... But the thing is that the game doesn't really explain to you that, and it's still unclear to this day how Hope's spirit really ended up inside Bunbelsa. We know it's because of the both direction connection they share, but this happened during the remolding process, and we still don't know if it was the Hope subconscious doing that, like as in Ranov's questline with the journal, in which this is every side quest counts, but or if it was an accident because of the stress and pain and pressure that Hope had to endure, that basically his soul shattered, because it wasn't just only his body that was being affected, but also his mind, because Bunny also wanted to create a connection between each other, from which he could see what Hope sees and hear what he hears, in order to understand humanity. But because this happened, it was when Hope lost his spirit, it deprived Bunny of this understanding, and him as well. But at very least, well, this is also the moment in which it's implied that when Hope became less than Hope, which is a key plot, so to speak, when the game, basically mostly Lumina says it's not the real Hope, it's not referring that he's a fake, or that he's being controlled. It refers that he, soul speaking, or as a person, he is less than Hope because his soul is sundered. So this is the tricky way Line Returns plays with tricks you and plays you, and it's great but it's great to me. But it's very well thought out, as in narratively, but it can be hard to get it during a first playthrough, and that's why the game is meant to be replayed a number of times. Anyway.
AC Gears and Arms in chat brings up a point and asks, is that why she did that huge slash with her hunting knife on Benevelze? So
that's a different story.
I would like to address that a little bit before we wrap. We've got about 20 minutes left.
Okay. So any of you want to go over this one? Take the explanation from this one?
I'll give it a go. So we first see the hunting knife in Lightning Return in the original Final Fantasy 13. It's the gift from Sarah. It's got its own representation. From the Japanese, it's a good luck charm that Sarah gave to Lightning. It's designed to basically cut her free from the ties of her past, give her a new future, and keep her safe and protect her going forwards. It's got a similar meaning, obviously, in English, but it's not quite as directly translated, where it's a gift to Lightning, a practical gift to keep her safe as the soldier. We then see it being used as the final weapon against Benevelze in Lightning's fight, and it's kind of described in the Ultimania, and it's kind of hinted at in game, but not explicitly said, that she puts all of her thoughts and feelings for Hope into the knife, which is obviously bound between them from the first game anyway. There's something that connects them deeply, and she pushes the knife into Benevelze in order to try and reach that part of Hope's soul that's stuck inside Benevelze, and draw it out and repair that soul using the thoughts and feelings that she's embedded in this knife. So it's not necessarily a wound to Benevelze, it's kind of cracking him open and reaching the soul in Hope and kind of pushing to the Hope soul and completing it. Is that about right? Did I make English sense?
No, go ahead.
Go ahead. The fulfillment of their promise, too, from the original game in Palampolum, where she promised that she would not abandon him. And, throughout multiple games, they each have had a promise to each other that they are trying to, keep. And so this is one of the things also he says when he returned the knife to her. And so now she is using that once again to reach him.
Yeah, it's a symbol between the two of them that's kind of been floating around the whole trilogy, and
they keep passing it back and forth.
She's cutting him free. She's cutting him out of Benevelze, like symbolically and almost literally.
the one part of Keikaku that went wrong.
All
I
right.
mean, yes. So, I think I'm going to have to go through that. I'm going to try to summarize that. Basically, Line Return's entire plot is hope.
Shadowbringers.
That too, but that's the entire thing is Hope's plot. So you have to bear in mind that. You know what? I need someone to, aside from me, to go over the Rose Hair Phantom episode. Choose who goes, and then I take it from that.
I've written enough fanfics. I've written enough fanfics about it. Let's do this.
There we go.
Yeah. So, Rose-haired Phantom. During the chaotic era, Hope was starting to lose it because Bunivelse was kinda luring him in. Lots of scientists were sort of disappearing around that time, saying something about Rose-haired Phantom going around. And this was kinda Bunivelse's way of, I mean, before he started physically remolding that kind of fuckery, he was torturing Hope before that, luring him kind of into Jesus jail by giving kind of hallucinations of lightning or a rose-haired phantom. So Hope was losing it at the end of the chaotic era, and because Bunivelse was already fucking with him. I don't know. Does anyone else want to add to that?
Well, it's also in the beginning of Lightning Returns, we have the last message from Hope, which was to beware of the fake lightning. And that's, the rose-haired phantom is very much what he was referring to, which is such a shame that that never made it into the game, but I can understand why it didn't from a structural point. But yes, and so Bunivelse is very much trying to lure Hope there. And when he first starts seeing the rose-haired phantom, it's just from the corner of his eye. He, tries to ignore it and immediately starts falling further and further down the rabbit hole of what Bunivelse is trying to do to him. And so then, it's okay. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna go on a tangent. Go ahead.
But so Bunivelse starts having the rose-haired phantom visit Hope in his dreams and changes the things that Lightning said in his memories. And eventually Hope reaches a point where he, after years of this, begins to detach from reality, where he cannot tell what is the true memory and what is the rose-haired phantom. And by the end of it, he has the rose-haired phantom lead Hope up to the Ark. And by that point, Hope does know that this is a dangerous entity, that it is not lightning, but he is just too deep in all of this to be able to fight it anymore. And so the beware the fake lightning message is the last thing that Hope is able to say once he has gotten onto the Ark and sends a warning to Snow. And then, of course, everything goes dead. All the electronics are gone. And he spends the next 169 years being remolded by Bunivelse.
So yeah, rose-haired phantom was the bait to slowly drive Hope. Just Hope lost hope, the noun.
One thing I thought was interesting was that before Bunivelse got Hope, he was taking the scientists, and it took me immediately back to what Meowth had said earlier, where Bunivelse went to sleep before humanity even existed, and so he's never seen humanity. And it reminded me of a kid, when a kid wants to find out how a toy works. And so he couldn't take Hope because he needed Hope, but he had all these other people that he could pluck from the world and just kind of figure out how they worked, and it was kind of horrifying when that dawned on me.
Yikes.
That's another point, and as in how because commonly we hear that in Line Returns, Bonibalsa reverted Hope to his to being a teen, and it's like when you know things, you're like, no, it's not exactly that. Bonibalsa reverted anyone to anything because Line Returns. I don't know if I mean this is subtle enough in that Line Returns Hope doesn't share the same model in game as OG13 Hope. The facial traits in particular are different, and and I have some really nice lighting close-up shots that I managed to gather over time to point out that this also triggers a really interesting subconscious reaction in the brain for the viewer. This is a kind of visual trick. So it tricks the viewer when you're standing before Line Returns Hope. You're usually in the arc where the lighting is very sourceless, so you didn't really have a source of shadows for noticing these traits, and it's all very white and shiny. But I always point out you have to check the eyes, the nose, and the jaw, and the chin in particular, and then you realize that what you're looking at is a combination of. It's basically it has the body of Teen Hope, but the traits are much closer to older Hope, and it's because it's not a magical remolding. It's that Hope's body was molded as one would shape a figure of clay. So yeah. Yeah, that. So also mentioning the last message that Hope sent, this is not addressed in Line Returns, but if you recall the opening cutscene in which Lightning confronts Snow, one is left to wonder. At first, one thinks that Snow has gone rogue, has gone antagonistic, and why is he fighting Lightning? Well, when you learn in the novel that Hope sent his final message before he disappeared was to Snow, warning him of a fake Lightning. Then later on Justan Quest, Snow makes a comment that he had to leave a test for Lightning to make sure that he was the real Lightning. And at first, this comment makes, narratively speaking, no sense. Aside from the fact that Lightning has been missing for 500 years, so you could chalk it up, and you don't know, to Snow being doubtful that this is Lightning after such a long disappearance. But then you learn of this in the novel that Snow is acting on Hope's final warning, and then you realize why he was fighting Lightning in such a way. Because also, it's not hard to make the connection that because Hope warned Snow before of this in an incomplete message, and suddenly he disappeared, Snow may have considered accurately that the responsible for Hope's disappearance was this fake Lightning. So he has double reasons to be pissed at this possible fake Lightning, and that's why you have the opening scene with Snow lashing out and against Lightning. So yeah.
Also, Snow
And a
and
lot
Hope
of
are the
them.
absolute bro TP. And
And we learn
Hope is
most of that,
definitely a
sorry.
best man. Hope is definitely best man at Snow's wedding. I'm sorry, they are the bro TP.
I can't refute that.
Agree to agree.
So yeah, there's that, and so yeah, there's the Rosehair Phantom, and there's in the novel as well when Hope tells the reporter that Oide, I don't really know how to pronounce her name. Sorry.
Okay, she's not important.
However,
I think I don't really know. Anyways, I don't really want to go into Spanish pronunciation because that would be the comfort way. But anyway, the thing is that Hope tells the reporter that it was in the arc that when he's already in prison that he learned himself the part that lightning would return as the savior, and the role that awaited him and awaited Lion as well. And that's the moment he was like, oh, fucking no. And that's what spurred him to snap out of this mental state, in a sense, that he had been suffering for a number of years of the Rosehair Phantom. And that's he tries to send Snow the message, but of course it went dead. But this is the moment when Hope starts planning Bunnyvel's demise and knowing that he's basically screwed. So yeah, there's that. So it's like, okay, I'm going to plan things the way I want, because in fact, he did actually voice in the novel that he wasn't about to let Bunnyvel do that to Lightning, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
screwing Hope over's fine, but screwing Lightning over, absolutely fuck no.
Hope will not stand for that.
So it's that's the start of Keikaku, in which basically the whole plan is getting Lightning to kill Bunnyvel's and at the same time destroy the last remaining part of his soul. And there's this thing in Fabula no Crystallis that if your soul is a story, and by soul also means the spirit as well, that means your existence is forgotten by everyone, as if you have never existed. Basically, humanity's spirits made of chaos are like a network, and it's because we remember each other even after we pass away that the dead have remembered, and the soul is able to reincarnate into a different person. If the soul stone was aimed to destroy the souls of the dead, so the people in the new world living wouldn't have any sorrow and regrets related to the dead. Hope's plan was to stop the soul stone, have Vanille instead save the dead, as well, having Lightning save the living, though in the end, regardless of if they lived or died, with Vanille performing the soul stone at that moment, everyone was saved. And then have Lightning, and then basically have Lightning. At this point, no one would have been able to save him because he was sundered. And with that, by killing Bunnyvel, he would have made sure that the other half of his soul was destroyed alongside the new world. So he was effectively planning cessation of existence by proxy. Basically, the main goal was hiding certain key information from Lightning, as in get her mad enough at Bunnyvel for her to kill him or perform the deed, but hiding the fact that as much as he could, that even though he tried to warn her in a sense that, yeah, regardless of what happens, keep your eyes front, because that's don't look back and don't try to save me anyway, because that's not going to work. Except it works, and that's when Keikaku kind of falls apart.
Did we ever? I think we've discussed this before. Did we ever figure out what his plan was regarding? I mean, they did need a new god/goddess of death, because Etro was very much gone, and I mean, Caius stepping up, kinda a wild card. I'm not. Did we ever?
Yeah, we
address
discussed
that?
that. Yeah, we addressed that, in fact, in the last stream of Flying Returns, but it was the credits and it was kind of late, so I understand why perhaps you don't remember. But yeah, we kind of discussed that Hope was still trying to put pieces of Keikaku throughout Line Returns as well. And in terms of in regards to the new god, of course, Lightning wasn't going to be part of the plan, but he needed a substitute. And there's a reason why. Of course, there's chaos in Etro's shrine, but he can't see it, so he sends Lightning there, and that's when they find out that Caius and Yule are there. And when Caius states that he doesn't want to be saved, you won't hear Hope complaining. It's like, okay, I found my replacement. So,
Oh, Caius, my beloved.
so yeah. And there's that. And maybe before wrapping up, we want to go quickly over Endgame of Line Returns, because that's a big thing.
It is kind of a big thing. So the universe kind of implodes.
I actually, before that, I actually meant in terms of Lightning and Hope's mutual salvation. Then we go into...
Okay. Got it.
So, you take the wheel, or Neela, whatever.
No, I think
you
Neela
go.
should go. Neela's been very quiet.
This is a terrible idea. I'm sitting here, I'm remembering it as we go, but it's been a couple years and I'm kind of fuzzy on the details. Sorry.
Okay. So, do you want to take the wheel, Cop?
So I'll try. Because from what I recall, Lightning uses the knife on Bonavelza and Hope's soul is inside and she pulls him out. This was, I believe, after all the other souls had gone, and Hope was just kind of expecting to stay with the old universe and sink and be gone forever. And Lightning goes back for him and actually manages to save him. And then there's a sequence of, I guess, imagery or flashbacks or something, and Hope, I think this is where Hope sees his parents. And it kind of just shows him that he does still have a future, and this is a life that he could have if he goes with Lightning.
No, backtrack.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, go back.
No, go. I mean, you can still go, but we will have to go over that point.
Yeah, I need to rewatch the cutscene, honestly.
It's fine. So yeah, and do you want us to take the wheel,
Yeah,
or
go
do you
ahead.
want to go on, you guys? And then if there's any point, I will go over the point. Who goes first?
Okay, so in the scene we obviously have Lightning's just pulled Hope's soul out of Bonavelza and they've told him to go fuck off. So Lightning's like, oh look, Hope, it's your dead parents. Wouldn't it be wonderful if you were reborn into the new world with them? You can have a nice, happy life with them. But by the way, I'm going to peace out and take care of the souls of the dead. And Hope was like, that sounds like a great idea. Not, I'm going to come and get you. So he then dives into the chaos and is like, you're not sacrificing yourself to be the goddess of death. I'm not having that. So I'm going to pull you out of the chaos and we're going to go to the new world together. Because, fuck's sake, we've had enough of that. We're going to go do our own thing now. So he pulls her out of the chaos. They think this is it. We're going to destroy Bonavelza. Everyone get in the car and let's go. It's time to kill some gods.
Get in the car,
I
loser.
like
You're
that
killing
recap.
God.
So I mean, it's yeah, go.
Odin and Alexander get in the back seat and off they go.
So
Yeah, and this is also kind of, I said earlier about the promise in Palimpolum being something that they come back to here. And Hope had promised years ago about being, that he wanted to protect Lightning if he could, just like she had said she wouldn't abandon him. So this was his chance to finally fulfill his part of the promise by protecting her.
We'll be together, he said, and then we read the novel afterwards.
well, to be
They're so damn shitty at keeping promises, these two.
well, at least the epilogue, I mean, is kind of very obvious in its own way, I guess. And then there's Watanabe, of course, being more obvious than that. But so this is when what I call the crossroads is when Lightning offers Hope the chance of basically start with a clean slate like the rest of humanity, like having a different life with different memories in the new world, a new start with his parents reborn as a kid, the child that as the child that he never got to be. That because there's this theme with Hope that the day of the purge was the day that Hope lost his innocence as a person. Which is what I mean. It's not addressed directly, but symbolically, because Bunibelsa wanted an innocent, pure vessel. He reversed him to his intended look as of when he was still an innocent child, before he was tainted, so to speak. And Lightning offers this chance, but also tells him, more specifically in Japanese, because Hope sees his parents, but he doesn't take perhaps not even 5 seconds before he looks away and he's like, no, fuck, no, where are you? What are you trying to do? And that's when Lightning stops him and basically tells him, if you turn back now, then you will. In English he says that he will never be able to leave. In Japanese, she explicitly tells him that that he won't be able to reunite with his parents anymore. And that's why she's telling him that she's staying behind, and she's entrusting him to lead the souls of humanity to the new world while she keeps Bunibelsa trapped in the chaos. So it's also appealing to Hope's duty as leader of mankind, that you have to lead them, and then you can get your clean slate, happy life, right? So that happens, and then Lightning appears in that arc-like dimension that's that it's the representation of her own spirit, her own heart, and she's chained to the throne of Etor by chaos, by herself actually, because and she's confronted by the fake Sarah and Lumina, and when they face her with that, you do realize that you're going to spend the rest of eternity alone. That's when Lightning breaks, and she calls for Hope. Don't leave me alone, and that's when Lumina and Hope are able to do something. Lumina by rejoining with Lightning, and Hope by actually following the thread and rescuing her, and reassuring her that we'll be together and all that. Yeah, and I recall Cobb mentioning that it only took Lightning one moment, and it was all needed for to be saved. and but at the same time, in the same process, you have to consider what it's very important for both characters, as Lightning choosing what she wants to, but also Hope turning his back on what it's supposed to be his duty, because he does what he does what he wants to do. And in 13-2, he already missed the bus one time, and he wasn't going to miss the bus twice.
For the first time in all three games, he chooses what he wants over humanity. He's been choosing humanity for a long, long time, and humanity has not given him anything back. So that's kind of the end of his arc, to finally go for what he wants.
It was a gamble, really, because I think we commented that on the stream, that by Lightning not staying there to trap Bunibelsa in the chaos, that means that he's going to break free and it's going to be a fight. And by Hope not taking the responsibility of leading the souls, means that the souls are stuck there, and it all depends on if Lightning and Hope will prevail in this final showdown that happens in the ending against Bunibelsa. But the implication basically that they do with it's like fuck that. And the other implication is that regardless of if we win or if we die, we're going to do that together after 1,000 years of separation, of course. And then, luckily enough, the rest of the gang show up. But the first time, if you recall the ending, these two were very actually facing Bonibelso with the perspective that they were the only ones in that could actually do it, because they were the only two left. So yeah. There's that.
I feel like we've just barely scratched the surface, even with 2.5 hours.
Did I mention? I think I mentioned you that I once was the chance of it was an interview of sorts of someone that wanted to talk trilogy with me, and I hadn't gone over most of what I wanted, and I had been talk like 6 hours straight. So you get the idea.
Nick, we'll have to do another one of these, and we'll have to dive into what everybody affectionately refers to as M3F.
Oh God.
Shit, fuck.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I'm up for it since I love discussing the trilogy, of course. And the more people it gets, it reaches out, and they want to try. I mean, this one we pretty much spoiled the entire trilogy, but it's fine. I mean, we assume that there's going to be spoilers. This is lore lines, so there's that.
Right.
But I don't really mind. And honestly, I have to say, after having to be your co-pilot in the entire trilogy, and having to constantly bite my tongue, as you ask questions that I couldn't answer, and there were situations I couldn't answer, and I'm not sure if in the recent months or year I will be able to control myself as much as I have to do in terms of spoilers. Though I have to say, in the Lore Dive when Mila joined, of course it was a Lore Dive, but because I wanted the audience to enjoy the trilogy and enjoy the ride, I also had to keep the leash tight on spoilers as well, if you recall.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember.
Admin chat.
Revealing the correct thing at
Absolutely.
the correct time.
And it's very complicated, because in early games, if you replay the trilogy, knowing the entire story, there are some things that you kind of
Oh yeah.
you kind of what? And
Like, wait a minute, I know what's going on here.
or that something that sounds like, this is very emotional, what's going to happen next, and it's like, like we were mentioning before this, I won't abandon you from lying here, and you're like, how it goes down, and it's like it's like, that's going to be 1,000 years of separation. And of course, M3F relies a lot. By the way, M3F is the abbreviation that came up for, I think it was Meowth Mega Metafuckery.
I do abbreviations. That's my thing. Because I can't be fucking spelling shit out all the time. And Meowth has so much shit going on, so I just make abbreviations.
Yeah, so to wit, as to hype, if you want me and we want us to do another session some other time, basically M3F is Meowth Mega Metafuckery, and it's about how the trilogy, how should I put this? It's about the trilogy and Hope's role, and how if he was fated from the start to become, or if he was something special, that he is something special by canon, even in the OG game and Episode 0, which is the first game's novel. But how deep that goes, it requires a lot of patching and connecting things from the entire trilogy. And there's some theories. There's some theorization as of why could be the cause, and that's M3F. But that's really. Every time, I mean, I have this. I have in the 13th server, I have people plainly asking what M3F is, and I'm like, can you please give me something from which I can start explaining, because it's just so extensive, and it's like, I don't really know where to start explaining it. And
you usually just say Cess can explain it shorter, and I'm like, fuck you.
But yeah, and but it's something really interesting to go. And I recall, I don't know about SFDO and Cell, I recall maybe you have mentioned something about M3F at some point, but I do recall, well, I do know Cell's Square Enix explain yourself assholes, because that's basically the war cry for M3F. But in terms of Cess, I think one of your statements was, at first when Meowth, I started to shape this up like 7 years ago, and I think it was like something along the lines of, at first when Meowth started bringing this whole thing about, you were like, you said, I was like something like, yeah, cool theory, but sounds a bit far-fetched, but it's a cool theory. And as years happen and things happen, and you replay yourself the theory, and you were something along the lines of, I hate it because the more I go into this, the more sense it makes.
Guess what? I started doing Yule death math, and things started checking out. It's all Kai's fault.
And I would like to point out that I wasn't in fandom either, so I didn't actually see Meowth coming up with this massive theory, but I kind of came to some of the same sort of conclusions independently. So as soon as I started reading Meowth's the M3F, I was just like, this is all that shit that Square Enix haven't explained.
Yeah, by the time I got exposed to it, I was at the point where you had it very developed, and it was actually fairly recent, and I was like, yeah, that pretty much makes sense.
So yeah, that would actually took us like another 2 hours and a half at least. So not going to go into that. We can leave it that for coming soon, between quote unquote soon, I don't know. The second part of lore diving with the lore diving community of Final Fantasy 13. I don't know.
The one.
Yes. So we're a little over time, but Meowth, is there anywhere people can go if they want to talk 13 or find out more about the 13 trilogy?
Sure. I mean, you can follow me on Twitter, even though my most of my content right now is Genshin Impact. Fuck that game. But if you want to find a place where to talk lore of the trilogy, we do have our server. That's the Academy Council. I'm going to drop the link in the chat, and if you want to join, then you're more than welcome. It depends on the day. Sometimes it's more lively than others, but more usually I think any of us are there ready to answer questions or debate or theorize. So yeah. So in that sense, we're active. We're very. How should I put it? Yeah, I guess we do encourage people to come in and debate, and also because there's so many misconceptions with the trilogy, we're more than ready to help people navigate the story as well. So yeah, you can join us if you want.
you can always do. You can at Shadow Meowth and say, Shadow Meowth, I summon thee. It always works.
Amazing. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. I really appreciate it. This was a lot of fun, and it was nice to dive into 13 a little bit more. I do have some videos kind of going over how they tie into 14. If anyone's interested in watching those, those are available on our YouTube page. But are there any closing remarks, Sess, Salinity, and SF Doll that you would like to make, Neela, as well?
I would like to say this game honestly affected my entire adolescence with the fuck fate, because I had a rough time when I played it the first time, and it helped me a lot. The whole message, like, make the impossible possible, do it anyway, try anyway, because you might be able to fuck fate. I fucked fate. So yeah, this game, this trilogy means a lot.
Oh, awesome. Salinity, is there anything you would like to say?
That's went all deep. I was just going to say thanks for having me.
Absolutely. It's great to have you on. Neela, do you want to say anything? I know you're part of the regular cast, but...
No, of course I want to say something. I want to say thank you guys so much for coming out. It was really great to hang out, talk with new people. Had a really good time. I know I wasn't super loud, but I was sitting here doing the sponge thing and absorbing it all. And I find the trilogy really interesting. So I feel like lucky to get to sit here and chat with you guys about it. So thank you so much for coming out.
Actually, we have a comment from YouTube. Holly Sutherland wants to read your fan fiction if you guys have it.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
So where can people find that?
Yeah. It can be found.
It's linked in the Discord.
Okay.
I can give you, Sess, you can give your, I think you use AO3 as well? I can give you mine, though. I can give you mine. I have a currently massive project joined with Sess, going on with the 13 trilogy. Yes, you're part of the project. Shut up.
We broke Google Docs. I've accepted my role in this.
So yeah, I can link my AO3 if you want. I have a few things here and there, but yeah, I can link it to you. So yeah.
I've got shit here that's from 2012. So yeah,
don't you dare start cringe. You write loads better than I do.
I've got some things that are kind of decent, I guess, but there's so much crap here too. Remember, I was a young one when it started. But yeah, I'll give you a link. I'll embarrass myself. This will be amazing.
The creator's curse. When you get better and you look back and you're like, man, I'm better now, and it makes it feel worse back then. It was still good then, I promise.
Should I orphan stories like, because my first is actually the story of Kai's ballad. It's telling.
Own your growth.
So I think SF Doll is the last one for closing statements.
Yes.
And so, yeah.
I would say that with the trilogy, this is really one of the best fandoms that I've had the joy of being part of. For a lot of years, even before we started talking, we always did a lot of following each other and having fun. And then once we really got going, it's been one of the best groups, and we've had so much fun doing all of this together for exploring everything.
All right. Well, thank you again, everybody.
We actually forgot to go over. No. We actually, maybe it's for the best, but we again forgot to go over the crazy period of ship wars over the fandom.
Oh, 2012 was not a good year. 2012 was not a good year.
Did we forget? Did we really forget?
Did we?
We yeah.
Or
It
did
was
I
we
think
start
every
great
fandom that falls.
Well, thank you again, everybody, and I appreciate everyone who joined us today. I look forward to the next time we do this.
Yeah.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks for coming.